11. Let's start learning. Hello, you're watching Channel 11 and today's Trivia Tuesday. Shankar and I are going to be talking about the Mariana Trench and the San Andreas Fault. Shankar, let's start learning.
So the Mariana Trench is made up of two major plates, the Pacific Plate and the Philippine Sea Plate. Both plates are oceanic, but the Pacific Plate is continental in some places like Baja California, New Zealand, and coastal California. In the Mariana Trench, there is a convergent boundary because the Pacific Plate subducts underneath the less dense Philippine Sea Plate. Because of the subduction, the Mariana Trench got formed. The Mariana Trench got created because the Pacific Plate subducted underneath the Philippine Sea Plate. This is called a convergent boundary because both plates converge and one plate subducts under the other. That is how the plates move to create the Mariana Trench. At the Mariana Trench, the crust is being recycled. Since the Pacific Plate subducted underneath the Philippine Sea Plate, the Pacific Plate is moving toward the mantle where the plate will melt and turn into magma. Then, due to the convection current, the magma will become less dense and float back to the Earth's crust by a volcano. The Mariana Trench has several impacts on humans. Today, I will discuss two of them. The first one being scientific innovator. Since the Mariana Trench is the deepest trench in the world, scientists have to innovate, invent, or think about ways to be able to go down to the Mariana Trench and research on what things can be found there. The second impact is about data. Since the Mariana Trench is the deepest trench in the world, the scientists have lots of opportunities to discover new data about the planet. For example, since there's very little to none light in the Mariana Trench, the scientists can discover how animals survive in the darkness. Maybe they somehow create their own light. Who knows? Now that you learned all about the Mariana Trench, I'm going to hand it over to Sri so you can learn about the San Andreas Fault. Sri, let's start learning.
So, the San Andreas Fault is the border of the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. The Pacific Plate is mostly oceanic and a little part of it is continental. The North American Plate is all continental. The plate boundary that's occurring is a transform boundary. Since the plates are sliding past each other, the fault is very wide. The Pacific Plate is moving north past the North American Plate, and another plate might be causing the Pacific Plate to move north. The plates are side by side, so they're sliding past each other, and the transform boundary is causing the pressure to build up, and that will cause more earthquakes. One plate is applying pressure on the other, causing it to move. The Pacific Plate is moving north. A divergent boundary with the East Pacific rise is causing seafloor spreading, and this is making the Pacific Plate move north. The crust isn't being recycled, and there's no new crust being formed. But as the plates are just sliding past each other, causing some pressure and friction. This pressure can lead to earthquakes, but it doesn't really affect the crust. The San Andreas Fault does have effects on humans. The two plates sliding past each other can cause earthquakes, like I said before, which affect humans. The land and anything on the land can be damaged. Because of the pressure building up, because of the plates sliding past each other, it causes pressure, and the pressure can lead to earthquakes. Buildings and houses can fall down, and it can really affect humans. Mostly negative effects as to people can lose their houses, and if it's for poor people, that's even worse because they don't have money and they have nowhere to go. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Trivia Tuesday, and we also hope that you learned something.
Thanks for watching.
Channel 11. Let's start learning.